Financier, or GAFI, is an intergovernmental organization founded in 1989 on the initiative of the G7 countries to develop policies to combat money laundering. In 2001, the mandate was expanded to include terrorism financing. The objectives of the FATF are to set standards and promote effective implementation of legal, regulatory, and operational measures for combating money laundering, terrorist financing, and other related threats to the integrity of the international financial system. FATF is a policy-making body that works to generate the necessary political will to bring about national legislative regulatory reforms in these areas. FATF monitors progress in implementing its recommendations through peer reviews or mutual evaluations of member countries. And since 2000, FATF has maintained the FATF blacklist, formerly called the Call for Action, and the FATF grey list, called the Other Monitored Jurisdictions. This blacklist sets out the countries that are considered deficient.
Sorry, I'm having trouble with the connection.
This FATF blacklist, Mr. Speaker, sets out the countries that are considered deficient in the anti-money laundering and counter-financing of terrorism regulatory regimes. The list is intended to serve not only as a way of negatively highlighting these countries on the world stage, but as a warning of the high money laundering and terror financing risk that they present. It is extremely likely that blacklisted countries will be subject to economic sanctions and other prohibitive measures by FATF member states and other international organizations. The blacklist is a living document and is issued and updated periodically in official FATF reports. Countries are added and withdrawn from the blacklist as the AML, anti-money laundering, and CFT, combating finance of terrorism list regulatory regimes are adjusted to meet the relevant FATF standards. I should mention that in addition to the grey list, the FATF also issues, in addition to its blacklist, the FATF also issues a grey list, officially called jurisdictions on the increased monitoring. Like the blacklist, countries on the FATF grey list represent a much higher risk of money laundering and terrorism financing, but have formally committed to working with the FATF to develop action plans that will address the AML CFT deficiencies. The countries on the grey list are subject to increased monitoring by the FATF, which either assesses them directly or uses FATF-style regional bodies to report on the progress they are making towards the AML CFT goals. While grey list classification is not as negative as the blacklist, countries on the list must still face economic sanctions from institutions like the IMF and the World Bank and experience adverse effects on trade. The grey list is updated regularly as new countries are added or as countries that complete their action plans are removed. The current FATF grey list, issued on the 21st February 2020, includes the following countries, and there are a whole list of them, and I mentioned just a couple in our region. So for instance, Bahamas, Barbados, and Jamaica would each be on this GRE list. With a membership, with a membership that numbers over 200 countries, the FATF has a mandate to assist authorities in going after the money of criminals, dealing in illegal drugs, human trafficking, and other crimes, and has developed the FATF recommendations that were mentioned earlier, or FATF standards, which ensure a coordinated global response to prevent organized crime, corruption, and terrorism. The FATF reviews money laundering and terrorist financing techniques and continuously strengthens its standards to address new risks, such as the regulation of virtual assets, which have spread as cryptocurrencies gain popularity. And Mr. Speaker, you would recall that in an earlier session of Parliament, you would have presided over the passage of the Virtual Assets Act, which sought to address the issue of virtual currencies and how the Federation was proposing to monitor the same. Additionally, the FATF monitors countries to ensure they implement the FATF standards fully and effectively, and holds countries to account that do not comply. This is largely done through a process known as mutual evaluation, where member states assess and monitor the progress of countries in adhering to the agreed upon international standards for global financial security. The FATF has reviewed the standards in 1996, in 2001, in 2003, in 2012, in 2018, and in 2019. As part of the training afforded to its membership in preparation to evaluate and to be evaluated, members of the financial services regulatory departments, law enforcement personnel, and customs officials, who all form part of the front line for the Federation, would have been beneficiaries of training as mutual evaluation assessors. In a similar vein, Mr. Speaker, the membership of St. Kitts and Nevis with the OECD has also required us to comply with these or those particular standards. The OECD, as you would recall, Mr. Speaker, is the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, and is an international organization that seeks to shape policies that foster prosperity, equality, opportunity, and well-being for all. One of the areas that it focuses on is that of tax compliance and reducing and eliminating harmful tax practices. I refer to the work of this body since both the FATF and the OECD often work in tandem and in a coordinated way to safeguard the soundness of international financial structures. As global trends and policies change, it is imperative for domestic policies to maintain a level of fluidity in order to keep in step with such changes. Mr. Speaker, we have seen in this age of the 21st century how knowledge and access to knowledge have continually seemed to surpass themselves as new developments have occurred at a lightning speed. With these developments, we have likewise witnessed how criminals have themselves become more flexible, adaptable, and have found ways to exploit financial systems and to unduly enrich themselves to the serious detriment and indeed destruction of others. At the core, therefore, of what organizations such as the FATF and the OECD and the anti-corruption body called MESISIC, and you recall MESISIC is the anti-corruption body, the convention to which St. Kitts would have signed to in 2004, an OAS body. These seek to promote is that good government, fair play, and respect for the rule of law are principles that should concern us all, whether we're seated in Washington, D.C., Bastia, Charlestown, or indeed Mozambique, Hong Kong, or wherever in the world. Mr. Speaker, as indicated by the honorable mover of the bill, St. Kitts and Nevis was to have hosted the mutual evaluation team of the CFATF earlier this year in March, April. However, this was not possible as a result of the unfolding drama of the COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic. And what is the Caribbean Financial Task Force, you may ask, Mr. Speaker? The Caribbean Financial Action Task Force, or CFATF, is an intergovernmental organization of some 25 territories in and around the Caribbean, collectively dedicated to implementing the AML, the anti-money laundering, and CFT, combating or financing of terrorism, measures outlined in the Global Financial Action Task Force's 40 recommendations. The CFATF itself is an associate member of the FATF and was originally established after a series of meetings between regional state representatives in the early 1990s. Those meetings culminated in the 1992 Kingston Declaration, in which the Caribbean states endorsed the creation of the CFATF with the goal of implementing the FATF recommendations. The principal objective of the CFATF is to aid the fight against money laundering and terrorism financing by ensuring Caribbean AML and CFT programs meet the standards set out by the FATF. The FATF does not issue AML CFT standards itself, but follows the FATF in its approach to monitoring, supervision, and enforcement. And that approach involves 4 components: mutual evaluations. CFATF member states conduct mutual evaluations of their FATF compliance performance. Those evaluations are then issued as reports available on the CFATF website. There are follow-up reports. After mutual evaluation reports have been assessed, member states issue follow-up reports which reflect the progress they have made in implementing the 40 recommendations. There are plenary sessions in which the CFATF holds these sessions twice a year or more in occasions around the Caribbean. The sessions feature discussions of deficiencies identified in mutual evaluation reports, along with any AML CFT issues relevant to member states, and their training sessions as well. The process of preparation then, Mr. Speaker, for this important assessment that St. Kitts and Nevis has to undergo did not only just commence, but has been ongoing for quite some time. In 2018, the World Bank would have assisted the Federation in doing an overall assessment of its national money laundering and terrorist financing risks. This assessment would have produced a national risk assessment report, the key elements of which would have been disseminated to key stakeholders, including the banking sector, law enforcement, and the designated non-finance business and professional sector, the DNFBP. In 2019, the process of preparation and strengthening of our anti-money laundering and counter-terrorist financing framework was solidified in a high-level commitment of establishing a national anti-money laundering committee, which is chaired by the Attorney General. The committee has a mandate that includes the following: issuing operational and informative guidelines on the mutual evaluation to all relevant agencies as necessary, engaging public and private stakeholders, and conducting focus group discussions, meetings, and workshops in preparation for the mutual evaluation of St. Kitts and Nevis. Conducting risk-based outreach for sectors requiring enhanced focus, especially those agencies deemed to be high risk with respect to money laundering and terrorist financing. Setting timelines for deliverables and to monitor the progress of submissions made by the relevant government agencies and private stakeholders. Submitting or approving the submission of documents, reports, statistics, and case studies to the Mutual Evaluation Assessment Team as evidence of compliance. Coordinate with supervisory authorities and other government agencies for the issuance and implementation of the necessary policies and regulations addressing the gaps identified in the anti-money laundering and counter-terrorist financing framework to ensure full compliance with FATF recommendations. Coordinating actions to assess the national money laundering and terrorist financing risks. Mr. Speaker, the chairmanship of the National Committee rests with the Attorney General, with the Financial Secretary as Deputy Chair, and I can assure this Honourable House that all these tasks have been embarked upon and are worked upon as part of our process of preparation. We have liaised and had several meetings with not only government representatives, but also relevant private agencies, including high-level representatives from the Banking Association, the Bar Association, and the Accounting Association. We have conducted mock evaluation interviews and facilitated information sharing on different levels as we have sought to enhance the dialogue in these areas. Since its official inception in or around October of 2019, the NAMLAC, as we call it, the NAMLC, has met 4 times. However, its implementing subcommittees have met on a more frequent basis. The committee is comprised of high-level representatives from relevant ministries and departments, and as follows: the Financial Secretary, the Commissioner of Police, the Controller of Customs, the Financial Intelligence Unit, the Controller of Inland Revenue, the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, senior officials from both the Financial Services Departments of St. Kitts and Nevis, the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, the Immigration Department, and the Ministry of Justice and Legal Affairs. You will recall, Mr. Speaker, that this committee was given legislative backing when the National Assembly passed the Anti-Money Laundering National Committee Bill in January of this year. All of these actions, Mr. Speaker, demonstrate the seriousness and commitment with which the federal government has approached these matters that can have far-reaching effect both domestically and internationally. Mr. Speaker, I wanted to take some time to set the stage in relation to what informs the bill before this Honourable House today, and I should say both bills, and to remind us of the foundational issues. I now turn my attention to the bill itself. Mr. Speaker, as the honourable move of the bill would have indicated, there are a number of matters that were highlighted during the mutual evaluation process so far, and the interventions today seek to address a number of those matters. In that regard, we have chosen to adopt a different technique from that which is usually employed, and that is to tackle several amendments simultaneously in one omnibus amendment. The objective, Mr. Speaker, is to save Parliament some time and effort by addressing together a number of relatively small amendments that are generally linked to the same subject matter. Mr. Speaker, these are not the sum total of all the amendments that are required, and therefore I would crave your indulgence in advance, Mr. Speaker, and that of my honorable colleagues in this House, as we come before this honorable House to make other necessary amendments and to introduce legislation in the near future on similar issues. It is anticipated that these amendments would place us in a more advantageous position in several different areas by promoting greater security as it relates to investigation of crimes and prosecution and conviction of offenders, as well as advancing the level of confidence in our financial system. We recognize that it is vital to build our capacities and to promote synergies both in the private and public sectors. Mr. Speaker, I will not embark too deeply on the salient points of the bill, as they have been ably identified by the honourable mover of the bill, save to add that all of the proposed amendments form part of a coherent approach that we are dutifully bound to pursue. I just want to say that whereas the mutual on-site assessment should have taken place in the last week of March, first week of April, we had to crave the indulgence of CFATF for 3 months extension to June, and later a further 3 months extension. We are still in negotiation as what will happen in the months of September. And it is likely that we may have to seek and crave a further extension in relation to that on-site visit. Mr. Speaker, in this current global economic climate, with the COVID-19 crisis, it is even more paramount that we strive to ensure that we are vigilant in developing our resources in a sustainable manner that demonstrate our continued commitment to good governance, natural justice, and the promotion of a resilient financial sector. And with those few words, Mr. Deputy, I would want to wish this bill safe passage to this honourable House. May it please you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Attorney General. And I am going to indulge you with a few more words because I need to ask a question. This miscellaneous amendments bill, is this novel? Is it the first time we're having a bill that affects a number of other
It happens from time to time, Mr. Speaker. It's not a regular feature, but whereas in this case you notice there were very minor amendments, all dealing with the relationship to the FATF, it was thought to be more efficient to combine them in one bill rather than to bring some 8 to 10 bills just for a phrase or clause as it may have been. And so this is a technique that is done in legal drafting, and I commend it to the House.
Thank you,
May I please,
Honourable. Are there any other presentations? A leader of government business, I think you're called into action again to
Mr. Speaker, I will not add any words to the elucidation done by the Attorney General. I think he has covered it quite nicely, added to what our leader, the Prime Minister, has already said. And so I will, on behalf of the Prime Minister, ask that this bill be read a second time and passed.
The question is that the bill entitled the Miscellaneous Amendments Bill Financial Action Task Force. Let me repeat or start again. The question is that the Miscellaneous Amendments Financial Task Force Bill 2020 be read a second time. Those in favor? Those against, the ayes have it.
A bill to provide for various amendments to facilitate the comprehensive implementations of measures to boost national security, strengthen investigative techniques, and to foster greater coherence within the financial services sector in keeping with the requirements of the Financial Action Task Force and for related matters, otherwise known as the Miscellaneous Amendments Financial Action Task Force Bill 2020.
House moves into committee stage.
Clauses 1 through 4.
The question is that clauses 1 through 4 stand part of the bill. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
Clause 5.
Question is that clause 5 stands part of the bill. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, it is proposed to amend the Miscellaneous Amendments Financial Task Force Bill 2020 as follows. And in clause 7, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think I see the difficulty. The amendments that have been circulated speak to clause 7 before we speak to 5. So I suggest we
do
go
clause
back.
5,
We
yes.
go back, and Madam Deputy Clerk, could you call out clause 5 again?
Clause 5.
Mr. Speaker?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
it is proposed that we amend the bill in clause 5, paragraph A, by inserting a new paragraph, a new subparagraph 2, as follows. By inserting paragraph E as follows. Where it is not possible to obtain relevant information on the beneficiaries of the trust, then the trustee shall provide a written undertaking that the identifying particulars of the beneficiary should be provided to the regulator at the time of the distribution of the assets of the trust.
Thank you. The question is that clause 5 as amended be approved. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
Clause 6.
The question is that clause 6 stands part of the bill. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? The ayes have it.
Clause 7.
Mr. Chairman, it is proposed that we amend the bill in clause 7 in section 115, subsection 2, by replacing at the end of paragraph A the expression or with the expression and.
The question is that clause 7 as amended stands part of the bill. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? The ayes have it.
Clauses 8 through 10.
The question is that clauses 8 through 10 stand part of the bill. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? The ayes have it.
The enacting clause.
The question is that the enacting clause stands part of the bill. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? The ayes have it.
The title.
The question is that the title stands part of the bill. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. House resumes.
The bill, shortly entitled the Miscellaneous Amendments Financial Task Force Bill 2020, has moved to committee stage with some amendments. I therefore move that the Standing Order number 57 be waived, be suspended, to allow for the bill to be read a third time and passed in the same sitting.
The question is that. The question is that Standing Order 57 be suspended to facilitate a third reading at this time. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? The ayes have it.
A bill to provide for various amendments to facilitate the comprehensive implementation of measures to boost national security, strengthen investigative techniques, and to foster greater coherence within the financial services sector in keeping with the requirements of the Financial Action Task Force and for related matters, otherwise known as the Miscellaneous Amendments Financial Action Task Force Bill 2020.
The bill has been read a third time and passed. The bill will now be presented to His Excellency Sir Tapley for his assent, following which there will be the gazetting of the bill, at which time it becomes law.
On advice of my colleagues, to ask for a 2-minute suspension, because while there's a resolution, we would at least like to interact with the Minister of Finance.
So this House stands suspended for 10 minutes.
Motions, resolutions,
Read the resolution into the public record and then provide an explanation. The resolution reads, whereas it is provided by Section 49 of the Finance Administration Act, Chapter 20.13, that the Minister of Finance may, in a financial year, and when authorized by the resolution of the National Assembly, borrow money from a bank, any other financial institution, or any other entity by means of advances of an amount not exceeding in the aggregate the sum specified in the resolution for the purpose of meeting current requirements. Whereas it is further provided by Section 49 of the Act that a resolution made under this section shall have effect for a period not exceeding 12 months. And whereas it is further provided in Section 49 of the Act that the power to borrow under that section may be exercised by means of a fluctuating overdraft, treasury bill, or other similar means. And whereas it is provided by Section 56 of the said Act that there shall be charged upon the consolidated fund all the debt charges for which the government is liable, and whereas the Minister of Finance considers it necessary to borrow by means of advance in the form of treasury bills, sums not exceeding 300 million for the purpose of meeting current requirements. Now it be resolved, therefore, that the National Assembly of St. Christopher and Nevis thus hereby authorizes the Minister of Finance to borrow by means of advances in the form of treasury bills sums not exceeding $300 million for the purpose of meeting the current requirements. Dated this day, the 13th of August 2020. Mr. Speaker, the resolution itself justifies why this resolution is required. It states that for purposes of borrowing, each year one must renew the authority to be able to issue certain instruments. In this case, the instruments of concern are treasury bills. And so it is revolving each year. You have a 12-month period given by the Parliament, and for treasury bills to lawfully continue as part of the operations of the government, you must come back at the end of a 12-month period for renewal. That, on the face of it, is what this bill does. It adds nothing to the existing debt because we are not, as it were, borrowing new funds. In terms of the broader background and an expansion of the legalistic frame, the Finance Administration Act of number 2007, so this tells you how far back there has been the obligation to come everywhere so long as the government has treasury bills or other relevant instruments identified in the law that are part of its operations. So that act provides for the control and management of public funds the authorizing of expenditure, the raising of money by the government, which is what the issuance of a treasury bill is, and the control of public debt and the giving of guarantees. The Act provides in a comprehensive manner the legal basis that is necessary for operating in a modern, global, information age, where accountability and transparency are the two cornerstones of financial management. Part 4 of the Act provides for public debt and guarantees, and in Section 48, it states, quote, that money shall not be raised on the credit of the government except under the authority of an Act of Parliament or a resolution of the National Assembly. By this expedience, we are going for the resolution of the National Assembly, and this is consistent with the legal approach that has been taken since the law came into effect way back in 2007. The subsequent sections of the law outline how short-term borrowing and long-term borrowing should be dealt with. Section 49, and that is mentioned in the first paragraph of the resolution, deals with short-term borrowings, which are what the treasury bills are. Every 90 days, you come and so on, your interest accrue, you can make a call, etc. The minister may, in a financial year, when authorized by a resolution of the National Assembly for the purpose of meeting current requirements, borrow from a bank or any other financial institution or any other entity by means of advances to an amount not exceeding in aggregate the sum specified in the resolution, in this case $300 million. A resolution referred to in subsection 1 shall have effect for a period of 12 years. So the resolution again is mirroring the law, and it is 12 months. Did I say 12 years? I'm looking ahead 12 years. The opposition will no longer be here. So 12 months, 12 months, 12 months. What this means is that on the annual basis, the Minister of Finance must come to the National Assembly, and the former Minister of Finance would have done that occasionally, and request approval for the renewal of government short-term borrowing, since these funds continue to be necessary to meet the financing requirements of the government as it administers the affairs of the country. The Act explicitly indicates the instruments for which this renewal would be necessary. They are fluctuating overdrafts, treasury bills, or similar means. Since the government continues to issue treasury bills as a means of facilitating the operations of government, the short-term resolution must be approved by the National Assembly, and it is for this purpose we bring it, in order to give the authority to use this instrument. And even though the short-term resolution can be used to increase the limits on short-term borrowing, given my government's commitment to put public debt firmly on a downward trajectory, we are not proposing any increases in the limit for the short-term financing. In reality, we have achieved notable results over the last 5 years in comparison to 2011, when the Treasury bills portfolio peaked at just under $400 million. The value of Treasury bills stood at $308.8 million at the end of 2016 and continues to trend downwards to $303 million at the end of 2017 and $220 million at the end of 2018, and 2019 we were down to 219.1 million. So what we are seeing is the Treasury bills are assuming less importance as part of the government financing plan. And indeed, we could, in fact, have brought these to an end. However, financial prudence indicates that it was always important for the government to have a stock of resources, if required, to which it could call. We never know when the lean period would come. And certainly now we are in a lean period, and yet we are not projecting to increase this commitment. Our prudent management of the Treasury bills portfolio and the public debt in general have helped the government to achieve a debt-to-GDP ratio below 60% by the end of 2019. Indeed, we are the first independent country in the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States to achieve this international benchmark of good financial management. This is not only a clear demonstration of the commitment of the Team Unity administration to good governance, but tangible evidence of diligently following through and delivering on the mandate for sustainable debt management over the last 5 years. Even in this COVID-19 environment, my government will continue to exercise fiscal prudence in any plans that may result in an increase in the central government's debt as a result of our response to the pandemic. What this is saying, in these turbulent times, there has been increased demands being put on the government treasury, the consolidated fund. And in that regard, for example, we have had to spend millions of dollars to ready the health sector for the worst case scenario with respect to COVID-19. And that includes, for example, bringing in doctors from Cuba, putting them up, paying them a stipend of hundreds of thousands of dollars. They are not here for free. That involves opening up quarantine sites. That involves bringing in students from Jamaica and elsewhere. All those things are unexpected expenditures that had become necessary in the context of COVID-19. We have purchased several other ambulances to add and to give us the flexibility of a response in the case some adversity were to be developed. We have reorganized our health centers and JNF. We have purchased ventilators and a host of other equipment critical to the maintenance of life should anyone reach that tragic state of having to need the ventilators, etc. So we have prepared, as it were, for the worst. For a number of years, Mr. Speaker, the short-term borrowing resolutions have been passed in the National Assembly, and each time almost we give the same explanation. It is a legal imperative. It is an indication of our commitment to good governance. It is that the country can be assured that the finances of the country are being best managed and that we are seeing a season of regular reduction in national debt and the ratio of the debt to GDP, and that we stand alone as being the very first country within the context of our sub-region to achieve an international benchmark, and we did so some 13 years ahead of the projected date of 2030. I suspect with the impact of COVID-19, the central bank will again revisit that time frame and maybe extend it for another 10 years, because it is anticipated that the COVID will continue to impact for a considerable period of time. And so it will take some time for the economies, as it were, to rise again. And in order to assist, member states will be required to borrow if they do not have the savings. And many of our member states, they have borrowed from the IMF, they have borrowed from the central bank, etc. Indeed, one of the reasons for reducing the discount rate at the bank was to make it easier for government that were cash-strapped to be able to access monies at a manageable rate. St. Kitts and Nevis, up to this time, has not had to borrow any monies. What we have done from reprioritizing our expenditures. And so we have, over the last 5-6 years, successfully put aside something for the rainy day. We hope that the rains will not come for too long, in the figurative sense in which the rainy day has applied, meaning for hard times, or worse times. For a number of years, as I said, this exercise has continued, and today there is a similar exercise being done in adherence to the Act of 2007. Whenever there is need for new borrowing or granting of new guarantees, these resolutions are done separately, as the instrument and the entity for which they are intended must be spelled out in the resolution. So the Finance Administration Act of 2007 is our Bible in terms of financial management, and it set out clearly a modern response to the management of the affairs of the government in a way that allows for transparency. Mr. Speaker, with those words, I beg that the resolution pass to this House. Thank you.
Thank you, the Honourable Prime Minister and Minister of Finance. I'll therefore put the question. The question is that the resolution, as read by the Honourable Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, be approved by this Honourable House. Those in favour? Those against? The ayes have it. The said resolution has been approved by this Honourable House.
Adjournment.
I rise and urge this Honourable House to adjourn sine die. And in doing so, Mr. Speaker, I take the opportunity to acknowledge that since we were last here, at last Parliament actually, we may have had quite a few individuals who may have had their demise. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, I know in my own constituency I have some persons like Henry Brown from Connery, who we know had served his country in various capacities in the police and the military, etc. John, another colleague from Connery. Nightingale Rollins, one of our older Calypsonians who lived in the United Kingdom and considered herself a very strong Calypso singer and supporter of persons all the way back to the King Sweeney. And of course, we've had someone in care like Anita Michael and another young man by the name of Goods. But Mr. Speaker, the one I really want to mention in this Parliament at this time is Sir Richard Llewellyn Keynes. We know him as Mazza. Mr. Keynes, you will know, Mr. Speaker, served in this House. He, of course, first hailed from Deep Bay. He likes to call himself a countryman. And I knew that way back in the 60s he had made himself into a financially independent individual using his skills of his trade. He was not financially independent because of any government facilitation, but by applying his craft, he became financially independent. I know some people will call him by other names in terms of referring to his financial independence, but I would not on this occasion. But he himself, Mr. Speaker, as you know, was one of the founding members of the People's Action Movement. And People's Action Movement represented in Parliament today by at least 4 members. Well, maybe 6. Because there's 6. People's Action Movement represented by 6? Yes, we have senators here, you know. And so, Mr. Speaker, the honourable member, I say, was a founding member of the People's Action Movement all the way back in the 1960s. And without going through all of the history, we know that he himself was persecuted politically. I remember going to court, Mr. Speaker, to listen to a case in which he was accused of being shot, and he took his shirt off. Everything to show I had never been shot. That was part of the political persecution, of course. But, Mr. Speaker, bottom line is Richard has contributed to this country in a significant way, in that he served as junior minister in the Ministry of Finance, while the PAM administration, PAM and RP administration had been in office between 1980 and 1995. And in that period, Mr. Speaker, I think when I came to Parliament in 2010, was one of the points I made very early, that we had seen that we had had a recurrent account surplus in those 15 years, a net recurrent account surplus after 15 years. And he was part of that leadership, of that stewardship. And it is for that which I really, really want to commend him, because in contrast, we've seen other periods where we have not done very well financially. And so I wanted to record that. He served from 1980 to 1995. He earned a nickname, Tekweki. I don't know if you remember that, Mr. Speaker, because he sought to make sure that the finances of the country, that the resources of the country were properly managed and not to create waste. And I remember people who used to want to use the government's vehicle at odd hours, wasting government resources, that he put his foot down on that and made sure that we conducted ourselves as public servants properly in using the country's resources. So, Mr. Speaker, I was going to ask for a minute of silence on his behalf, and I will leave that to you, because I think it is appropriate. But I just wanted to mention the contribution he's made, not only in this Parliament, but to his entire country. And so I, on behalf of my own constituents, where he ran in 1979 and ran for political office, I want to say to his family that I express condolences on behalf of all. 75, my error, in 1975. Yes, he was preparing to run again in 1980, but 75. And I want to just say to his family my condolences on behalf of my constituents and on my own behalf. And I'm sure others will give their condolences on behalf of the entire party of the People's Action Movement. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May it please you.
Mr. Speaker. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I too would like to rise at this point of the adjournment of this particular sitting, and also would like to express condolences to a number of families, including the family of the late Honorable Richard Keynes. But before I do so, Mr. Speaker, permit me as well to make a few remarks pertaining to my return to this Parliament. I want to say that I am here today at the start of the 2020 session of this National Assembly of the Federal Parliament of St. Kitts and Nevis by the grace of God, but also by the dedicated support of the constituents of St. Christopher VI, the good people of Newton Ground, St. Paul's, the Abbey, Parsons, Pogson, Lynches, Lavington, Sadlers, and Harrises. And I have done so under the auspices of the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party. Again, permit me, Mr. Speaker, to use this opportunity to thank the officers and the leadership of the Next Gen SKN Labour Party for their tremendous efforts and support for the election of the Honourable Member for Constituency Number 1 and myself as we sit in this Parliament to represent the respective constituents. We, however, again would thank the residents of St. Kitts and Nevis throughout our entire country, those who supported my other colleagues who are not here with me in Parliament today, and who in the general election would have received support from a number of electors. I say that they are not here with us in Parliament today, have not been returned for a number of reasons which are of merit, as were lodged in a series of petitions which were filed in our Supreme Court, but for which notice of withdrawal has already been given because of procedural errors of a technical nature. This was most unfortunate, Mr. Speaker. This morning, as I listened to the Pastor Evelyn, who brought the prayer in this Parliament, the contextualizing of fairness and justice was most powerful, as this National Assembly must not only seek to attain and uphold these at all times, but they should be pursued throughout our society, throughout our country, at all times, especially in the conduct of our general election, to seek a place or a seat in this very Parliament in which we are sitting today. It is in this regard that I emphasize that the merits of our claims are real and just, and our search for justice and fairness will never, never end, especially after being the victims of a general election held under a state of emergency and without any international observers being here in our country. And so, Mr. Speaker, despite our setback, here we are, the Honourable Member of Constituency Number 1 and the Opposition Senator, Dr. Joel Clark, and myself, ready to serve, ready to represent and ready to work on behalf of our constituents, our party, and on behalf of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. Their presence here today, Mr. Speaker, is a testimony of the successful policies and programs of empowerment of our youths and our women folk over the years pursued by the Labour government. Both of my colleagues here with me in Parliament today, they have had successful career paths over the years. Youth activism. They have been educators, not only at secondary level, but at the postgraduate level as well. And specifically for our senator, an environmentalist, a community empowerment activist, and an international consultant. They are both young and ambitious and willing to learn and have the capacity to represent our young people and our women folk, not only here in this parliament, but throughout our land, St. Kitts and Nevis, and throughout the Caribbean region. They are very much aware of the pain, the economic hardships that our people are now facing, worsened, of course, by COVID-19 pandemic. They intend to speak up and speak out in defense of those calling for a better new normal as we together cope with the severity of the socio-economic challenges from COVID-19 pandemic. It is therefore with honor, Mr. Speaker, and privilege that I am sitting with these two young people today in our parliament for the first time, and ready, as I said, to work on behalf of our citizens here in St. Kitts and Nevis. Permit me now to return to the expression of condolences and to join the member for constituency number 8 in expressing our condolences to the families of the following persons. I also would like to join him specifically with regard to the late Richard Keynes, who served in this assembly as senator and also as Minister of Finance in that ministry for a relatively long time. I also would like to express condolences to the family or the families of Lloyd Lazar, a retired permanent secretary in the Ministry of Sports, and who himself was a sportsman and a sports administrator. I understand that he has passed recently. I also join my colleague on the other side in expressing condolences to the family of Henry Brown, the late Henry Brown from Connery, who served in the Royal St. Christopher Nevis Police Force for quite a while and was well known for his enforcement of the traffic laws here in our country. I say to you, Mr. Speaker, that we would have seen these different people serving our country at different times in our own lives. And for this, we express, and my colleagues here, profound condolences to the families who are in bereavement today and who I'm sure will miss them. May it please you, Mr. Speaker.
I recognize the Honorable Dr. Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sorry, let me do it this way. Mr. Speaker, if I may permit me to make a few comments at this time, and thank you for the opportunity for speaking to this honorable House. I stand here recognizing that my appointment as the opposition senator yesterday on International Youth Day confirms two things. Firstly, SKNLP, the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party, is continuing its commitment to listen and respect the opinion of youth in our federation. And secondly, from the well wishes, prayers, and stern reminders from supporters on both sides, we are all excited about the opportunity to have a voice to echo the resounding opinions of the youth and women calling for universal, equitable empowerment. We are one federation, represented by one flag. It is time to self-actualize the dreams of our forefathers and pursue all-inclusive development. This is an incredibly humbling and meaningful opportunity for St. Kitts and Nevis and every young girl in the Federation. This opportunity, Mr. Speaker, comes at a time of great significance in the history of the world with its unprecedented health, social, and political issues linked to dehumanization of marginalized groups. We are not immune to global trends. Here in St. Kitts, Mr. Speaker, an unfortunate culture of prejudice and discrimination has perpetuated false narratives that have suppressed the truth for far too long. It has also led to and fostered discrimination against marginalized groups, particularly women and girls. Young people have become disenfranchised by traditional politics, where winner takes all. Mr. Speaker, I'm here to remind the Honorable House of what many of us do know. In fact, we all know, but we choose to conveniently forget that young people matter, women matter, marginalized men matter, and the environment matters. Our voice must resonate far and wide on issues that matter to all, including the most vulnerable in society. As parliamentarians, we have no choice but to listen and respond with responsible legislative agenda. I humbly ask you to join me in using your platform for positive action, volunteerism, community development, and fearlessly calling out wrong wherever you see it. This unfortunate reality is that we live in the new social media-driven world where you are attacked for simply speaking up, where stories are manufactured about you without a scintilla of truth, where one's character is smeared and falsehoods peddled ruthlessly to suppress the truth and to stifle justice. Someone must be bold enough to take on that responsibility, knowing full well what is likely to happen. Mr. Speaker, imagine, I have to ask myself, not will, but when will I suffer a similar fate? Because today I have chosen to use my voice to speak up for all that is wrong. Standing up today may not look like what it did in the 30s with the Buckley's riots, nor in the 60s with the movement for equality in America. Today, social media assassination can ensue simply by deciding to speak up on issues that matter, knowing full well that professionally, financially, and personally, nothing will be spared to destroy you. But I remain resolute, Mr. Speaker, in responding to my obligation. But I come back to the people that matter and say, stand up nevertheless. Dare to aspire. Dare to dream and persevere in your convictions. Do something. Say something.
Be something bigger than yourself. Put country above self. This is a responsibility that I promise to take seriously. I understand the weight of good governance and responsible representation and will embrace guidance from everyone. Let us guide our youth, impress them with intellectual maturity and political maturity. Give them something meaningful to listen to. Show them responsible action in decision-making, that it should be premised on meritocracy and principles, not personal gain and political gain. As a society, we are responsible to guide rather than criticize youth. I am therefore thankful to the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party, Mr. Speaker, and their executive and the leadership for affording me this opportunity to contribute to changing the narrative about the labour movement, about empowering young people, and changing the culture of prejudice. I recognize that students, the future of our country, were in the moment with me yesterday. And for them, I am committing to using this opportunity to ensure environmental justice is the order of our development agenda. We cannot destroy the one earth we have. So for all my fellow environmental ambassadors, this is our opportunity to elevate the conversation around sustainable tourism, environmental justice, and harmonious development. As a proponent of women's empowerment, my belief is that empowering both women and men leads to immeasurable positive outcomes. It is about equity and inclusion of both genders, not the exclusion of anyone. No one should be left behind. It is exciting to be here, honestly, with the largest number of women and youth to ever sit in the Parliament of St. Kitts and Nevis. I humbly join former female comrades, Anne Wigley, Jean Conda, Marcella Liebert, and Jacinth Henry, who took this position with honor. The empowerment of women through senatorial appointments is nothing new to the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party. Let us bridge political lines and find common causes that we can support in the interests of people we are sworn to serve, even if it means helping a fellow female adjust her clothes, as my fellow friend sitting on the government side of the gallery just did. Help each other. At a time when a black woman has been nominated as the first black person to be nominated as a vice presidential candidate on a major party ticket in the USA, let us continue the narrative and collectively determine the agenda to protect the rights of women and girls in the Federation. That would be a first, and a good first, collective action. We join a global trend of inclusivity and empowerment. Indeed, this is a momentous time in our history which should be celebrated. I must attribute this position to contributions from everyone. I've had persons who have been integral in allowing me, as a young person in their employ, space to think and work on projects. They encouraged independent thought, and I thank them for the opportunity. I especially thank the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party for inducting me into constitutional and leadership responsibilities. My teachers from Sandy Point Primary and High Schools, my debate coaches, of which one sits here on the other side. Yes, Mr. Member for number 5 was one of my first debate coaches, and here I am. Thank you. My clan at UWI Mona, my teaching colleagues from Keon High School, my adopted mothers for their guidance, my small sisterhood of supportive friends who sit on both sides of the political divide, but engage in stimulating and useful political debate. My extended family for walking up to me and praying even when I don't ask for it. To my immediate family, thank you for keeping me grounded. Mr. Speaker, I am a clerk from St. Paul's. That's it. I come with no wealth, no title, no entitlement, except a burning desire to serve for the good that I can do. I say this to remind every little girl, Mr. Speaker, looking in a mirror, wondering if she's enough. I still do it sometimes. I did it this morning. But I have a remarkable friend who says to me, Jay, you are enough. We are enough. We are enough to make a difference that matters. Social and political reform starts with the individual. Environmental justice starts with the individual. Mr. Speaker, I end here by sharing something I heard and subscribed to. Human empathy is the minimum requirement for being human, but it is the quality of the highest order. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Joel Clark, for that maiden presentation. I recognize your former tutor and member for constituency 5, the Honorable Sean Richards.
Mr. Speaker, I rise on this, the adjournment, to say a few words. First of all, Mr. Speaker, let me take the opportunity to congratulate the Senator on her appointment in the National Assembly. Indeed, I would have worked with her as a then student at the Sandy Point High School when she would have been part of the different debating teams there. So I do know her, I know of her capacity, and I could also add that her mom and my mom have been friends for quite a number of years. Welcome, Madam Senator. Mr. Speaker, I also take the opportunity on this, the adjournment, to extend condolences to a number of persons. Of course, within my own constituency, and one person who comes readily to mind, Mr. Speaker, is Police Officer Macau, who would have passed away about a week and a half ago. As a matter of fact, the police officer and I grew up in the same neighborhood in Sandy Point, just a couple of houses away from each other. I therefore extend condolences to his wife, his sisters, his brothers, and also, of course, to his fellow police officers. I must also extend condolences to the mother of a former member of this Parliament, the mother of Constance Mitchum, who passed away also a few weeks ago. The final person, of course, who I speak of would be that of Richard Llewellyn Keynes, who, as you heard, would have served as a member of this Parliament for quite a number of years and was also a founding member of the People's Action Movement. I would not repeat what my colleague, the Honourable Member from number 8, would have said previously. Richard's life, though, Mr. Speaker, in terms of public service, wasn't just as a member of the Parliament, because I note that he also served as the chairman of the Board for Social Security from 1980 to 1989, and thereafter as chairman of the board for the then SSMC. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, he has given a number of years to public service. And the public service for me doesn't just mean being able to serve as a member of Parliament or within the public service itself. Richard has contributed in a number of different ways to the development of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. If we take, for example, the politics of St. Kitts and Nevis and the fact that when he became one of the co-founders of the People's Action Movement, you only had one political entity back then, one can see how him being a part of the formation of a new political party would have added value in terms of the development of democracy here in St. Kitts and Nevis and giving persons a choice and expressing a different opinion. But even after he would have left public service in terms of serving in Parliament, Richard, up to very recently, would have also been a very known individual for speaking out on matters of public importance through a particular radio program that he would have shared with a next former member of Parliament. He also would have spoken on the political platform for, I can't remember the name of the entity or what it was termed as back then, but he would have lent his voice to those public meetings, Operation Rescue, ventilating his opinion again on different matters before the public sphere. Mr. Speaker, I do believe that in doing so, he has helped to bring about a greater awareness and appreciation for the different issues facing persons here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis and further afield, and for that we must give him thanks. I know of one association, the Association of Administrative Professionals, that inducted Richard as an honorary member. That is because he would have lent of his expertise, he would have lent of his resources towards the development of that particular association. It is therefore no wonder that in the year 2016, he was awarded the Companion Star of Merit, the CSM. That again, of course, would have been in acknowledgement of the stellar service that he has given to the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. As the senator spoke before me, she spoke of persons coming from humble beginnings and being able to make a contribution. Richard, who grew up in the community of Gateway, I think it was, has basically been a self-made man. He worked at SSMC. He opened his own business on Princess Street for quite a number of years. He worked as a mechanic, and using that particular expertise, he went into the business of supplying vehicle parts. If you perhaps look at the history of the rental business in St. Kitts and Nevis, Richard was one of the pioneers in that particular field. Mr. Speaker, I can stand here and say much more relative to the life of Richard Keynes, a gentleman who I had the honor to sit in many different arenas with, be it at his store where he would have given different histories, different history lessons, whether it is about politics, whether it is about life in general. Richard would have spoken to me about our journey towards independence, the meetings that he would have been part of in London leading up to our independence, and quite a number of other things, Mr. Speaker. Indeed, he has given human service to the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, and for that we are indeed quite thankful. And as such, on my own behalf, on behalf of the People's Action Movement, on behalf of constituency number 5, I extend condolences to his family and friends on his passing. May it so please you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member for number 5. I've caught 2 members out of the corners of my eyes, so I'll leave it to them to resolve that little issue. I recognize the Honourable Senator Dr. Bernicia Nisbet.
Mr. Speaker, I rise this afternoon to address and acknowledge your soul cleansing movement this morning and to make brief remarks. Honorable colleagues on the government bench, honorable members of the opposite, I stand here today to offer myself in a humble service for my country and to the people of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis as Deputy Speaker of this Honorable House. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, for your congratulatory remarks and for your warm words of welcome. I also wish to register my willingness and commitment to serve as your counterpart and to avail myself of your superseding good guidance and counsel as I seek to discharge my responsibility with affinity and humility. I also seize this opportunity to thank the Honorable Prime Minister, Dr. Timothy Harris, elected member of constituency number 7, and the members of cabinet for reposing such noble civic responsibility on me. I regard my appointment as a symbol of another seminal crack in the glass ceiling of young women in this country who are consumed with an unrelenting ambition to advance themselves and make valid contribution to the development of society. I therefore, Mr. Speaker, render my voice as a voice for the people and a defender of the prudent and orderly discharge of legislative protocols and regulations of this Honorable House. I also wish to congratulate and welcome the new members on the opposition side. And in doing so, Mr. Speaker, I reaffirm my commitment to working with both sides of the House without fear or favor. May it please you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Senator and Deputy Speaker. Before I recognize the other member, I must add at this time it is shaping up to be quite an interesting session. Moving forward, from the presentation so far, I'm sure we are feeling it already. I recognize the Honorable Jeffrey Hanley, member for St. Christopher 1.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I rise at this time on the adjournment to make a few remarks. It is with a deep sense of pride and unbounded pleasure that I rise to make my first presentation in this honorable House from the very same seat where I debated many years ago in Youth Parliament and would have won the Commonwealth Youth Parliamentary Sitting Best Speaker. I must admit that I would have preferred to be making this contribution from the other side of the aisle, but I feel honored nonetheless, and I am grateful to all of my constituents for giving me the opportunity to be here. Mr. Speaker, I shall begin by giving thanks, and at the outset, I thank Almighty God for having given me life and breath to endure this journey and to triumph against all the odds that were stacked against me. Mr. Speaker, I recognize when purpose and destiny is wrapped up in one, it doesn't matter how long it takes to be manifested. Once it is for you, it is for you. And with that said, Mr. Speaker, I share a quick story and move on. The very suit that I'm wearing in this honorable house, Mr. Speaker, I bought it in 2005 and placed it in my clothes closet for such a time as this. Prophecy has been fulfilled, and Mr. Speaker, I will be a voice for our silent churches. I thank my tailor for trying his best to bring it down to slim fit, Mr. Speaker, because 15 years ago, you know, those pants were almost like sails. Mr. Speaker, I also wish to thank my immediate family who stood by me, never wavering in their support of my quest, always assuring me that they were and still are with me 100%. Thank you, Daisy Hanley, my wife of 23 years, my children, my dad, Ivan Hanley, who would not have missed this event had it not been for the pandemic. And of course, Mr. Speaker, if you knew a woman by the name of Gertrude Lewis, you know that nobody would have been able to hold her back from being in this parliament, seeing her 16th child reaching this level. Those of you who know me, Mr. Speaker, know that my family, my extended family, is vast, and they too deserve to be recognized for their unswerving support of my campaign. To them I say, thank you, thank you. To my next gen team and leader and the entire St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party, you guys were an amazing think tank, resource, energy, and real love and support. Mr. Speaker, I would like to think that I had the best campaign team in the world. And words are not enough to convey to every single one of them my deepest gratitude for their assistance, support, and advice over the past 2 years. Thank you very much, team. Mr. Speaker, a special thank you goes out to all the constituents of East Bastille who voted for me. It goes without saying that after all is said and done, it is the constituents who put me here, and I shall be eternally grateful for your vote of confidence in me. Rest assured, I shall not fail you. I shall not disappoint you, for as I always told you, I am with you, and I tell you today that I am still with you. And those of you who did not vote for me this time around, you too can count on me to provide representation you deserve. My dear constituents, I want to make it abundantly clear today that I intend to be your advocate in this honorable house. Your advocate for fairness and justice, your advocate for jobs and affordable housing, your advocate for innovation in our education system and a better deal for our teachers, your advocate in first-class health and better working conditions for our nurses and other frontline healthcare providers, your advocate for a safe, reliable supply of drinking water, and your advocate for a better future for our young people. Mr. Speaker, this is my pledge to my constituents, every single one of them, from east of 4th Street, to the Southeast Peninsula, from Taylor's Village. I am going to fight for you because for too long, far too long, your needs have been neglected and ignored, and I intend to make things right again in East Bastille. For too long, the residents of Frigate Bay and Half Moon and the Southeast Peninsula have been crying out for decent roads and reliable water and electricity service. I am here to fix that, Mr. Speaker, with the help of my former boss. For too long, my constituents of Ponds Pasture and Taylors, New Pond Site and Ponds Extension, Baker's Corner and Manchester Avenue, Newtown, have been calling out for jobs, decent health care, and affordable housing, while their distracted representative was busy with other things. Mr. Speaker, I want to show this honorable House that I take trust in the people, trust that the people have reposed in me, as I solemnly swear that I will do my best to serve them without any hesitation or any mental reservation whatsoever. In that regard, Mr. Speaker, this honorable House can also be assured of my unwavering commitment to raising the standard of debate above that to which the constituents of East Bastia have previously been subjected. I will not oppose for opposing's sake, but I will vigorously challenge any injustice in the interest of my constituents. I will not be silent, Mr. Speaker, and I will not be afraid or intimidated. As I end, Mr. Speaker, let me take this opportunity to congratulate all who were successful at the polls. Many I would have met with, Mr. Speaker. Many would have congratulated me. Some would have provided me with sound counsel during this journey, and I say thank you. But, Mr. Speaker, I'm quite certain that the Honorable Senator Wendy Phillips, she must be very proud today, sitting in the same parliament with one of her students. Thank you, teacher, as I still refer to her as teacher. And of course, Mr. Speaker, my former boss, the deputy member for number 5, who supported every initiative that I presented while I worked in his ministry. I say thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, as I reflect on the days in Youth Parliament, we debated bills, and then former Labour government perfected some of these, and eventually they became law. These days will return as I will continue to fight for our young people. Mr. Speaker, I remember the days when our young parliamentarians were consulted on and were given the responsibility of putting policy documents together to be presented to cabinet, and they listened. I will ensure, Mr. Speaker, that these things continue to happen, as it is important for us to ensure that our young people are fully engaged and are always a part of the process. Mr. Speaker, young people are looking for something different from us in Parliament. We cannot behave and debate in the same way that we have been doing it for years. And it is not my intention, Mr. Speaker, to drop the ball. We must raise the bar. We must be different. And finally, Mr. Speaker, I am so proud of my young people today. And I'm happy to be here with the Honorable Dr. Joel Clark. Mr. Speaker, when we look at some of the young people who would have passed through my hands and the organization, the St. Kitts Nevis National Youth Parliamentary Association, tears always want to flow. We had the former clerk, Ms. Jihan Williams, former Senator Nigel Carty, who came through my hands in the Young Labour movement, former Attorney General Jason Hamilton, one of my scouts, and he took over Young Labour from me. The Honorable Conris Maynard, former MP for number 3. Now, Mr. Speaker, Mrs. Sonia Body Thompson, Honorable Akila Byron Nisbet, who sat in that very same seat, Mr. Speaker, in 1998 and many times after. Senator Joel Clark, a former member of the same Sniper group. It was a moving moment yesterday, witnessing her receiving her instrument of instruction on International Youth Day. And I feel honored to be a part of the team with her, knowing that a seed that I would have planted have blossomed into such a garden. Just before I take my seat, I join the other colleagues to express sympathies to Mrs. Lazar and the entire family. Sister Buyam Pond Road, my constituency, my constituents, my sympathies to you. And of course to the Honorable Richard Keynes. That man and I had a conversation a few weeks ago before he passed. And I am happy that I would have visited him because I spent a lot of time in his home. His children and I get on very well. And he was happy when I came and I was able to pray with him. So to Joy, to Richard, to Inez, to Scott, to Colin, the entire East Basti extends sympathies to you. And do know that in God you can find comfort. May it please you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Dr. Jeffrey Hanley, for your maiden presentation. I now recognize the Honorable Member for Nevis 10, Mr. Eric Evelyn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I seek your leave on this adjournment to just make a few remarks. I want to say, first of all, how humble I am to be here in this honorable house on this my maiden voyage. Never in my wildest dreams I would have thought that I would have reached the walls of this honorable house. I know I would have followed the news many times, and I would have listened to some of the debates, and I never dreamt that I'll be here. But be that as it may, Mr. Speaker, I'm here thanks to the overwhelming support of the constituents for Nevis 10. And I must say that I'm very humbled and privileged and honored to represent the constituents of Nevis 10, to represent the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis in this honorable house. I want, Mr. Speaker, to congratulate, first of all, you for being re-elected as the Speaker of this honorable house. I think this is probably a job that you very much like, because you haven't had a very easy time for the past 5 years. I hope it will be much easier in this term. And of course, I want to congratulate as well the members on this side of this honorable house, in particular the new members for St. Christopher 2 and 3, and for Nevis 11, and of course the Deputy Speaker as well. And of course on the opposition benches, I want to congratulate the lady senator. I love the tone of your speech. And of course, as well, the representative for constituency St. Christopher 1. And I have to tell you that you probably are a magician because your 15-year-old suit look like it's only 15 minutes. It looks very well. But Mr. Speaker, as I congratulate all of us, and of course I congratulate all who would have been successful in the elections of June the 5th, 2020. I know, Mr. Speaker, that I'm a rookie in this honorable House, but I think I can give a little bit of encouragement and advice to all of the members in this honorable House. Because as I would have said, Mr. Speaker, I have been one who have been following the news for a very long time, and I have to say that over the years that I've been following the National Assembly of St. Kitts and Nevis, frankly speaking, I have been disappointed many times with the conduct of some of the members of this honorable House. And I'm hoping that in this new term that we could see a difference. I have to say that in this, my first experience in the House today, it has been very calm, very, very calm, very soothing experience. And I believe that all who are listening and all who are following, it has been a calm and soothing experience for them as well. And we are hoping that this calm and soothing experience could continue during the next 5 years, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I know that all of us as politicians and MPs and persons who are representing our various constituencies, we must be very passionate. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. We must be passionate in our representation. That is why we are here in the first place. But in being passionate, Mr. Speaker, we should also be respectful and not try to be raucous and not try to cause unnecessary drama and conflict within the House, Mr. Speaker. So I'm hoping from what the presentations that we've heard so far today, and you would have alluded to that as well, it seemed like a new beginning. I'm hoping it does not just last for this sitting, but it is something that will continue. Because we must realize that our young people are looking at us. Our constituents are looking at us. And even though they want us to come to the Honorable House to represent and represent them well, they do not want us to display any untoward behavior. I am happy that all of the political parties in St. Kitts and Nevis now have youth arms, which shows that the young people are now gravitating to politics. And we, as members of this Honorable House, we must display the kind of conduct and decorum that is befitting of us as seniors. And we would want that when we leave these walls of this Honorable House, irrespective of how long we would have stayed here, that we would want these young people to emulate us. And I don't think that the young people would want to emulate raucous behavior. And so I'm hoping, Mr. Speaker, and I'm sending out a clarion call to all on both sides of the aisle, that during the next 5 years, we should seek to represent ourselves well, represent our constituents well, represent St. Kitts and Nevis well. St. Kitts and Nevis has developed a reputation, especially during this pandemic. And a lot of people are looking at St. Kitts and Nevis. And we must maintain that good reputation that we have in the region and on the international scene. And I think part of that reputation should be our conduct in this honorable House. And so I am pleading and asking once again that we conduct ourselves well, with dignity in this honorable House. As I said, I'm very, very happy to be here. I could recall sitting right in the same area, I think it was in November, for the 25 most remarkable teens. And when I sat here, somebody said to me, "You're practicing to sit in the parliament." And I just took it as a little joke. But I'm here, and I want to assure the people of constituency Nevis 10 and the people of St. Kitts and Nevis that I take representation very seriously, and I will represent all of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis very seriously here in this honorable House. Mr. President, I want at this time as well, Mr. Speaker, I apologize, my humblest apology. I want at this time to congratulate 6 young persons who would have been honored during an award ceremony in Nevis yesterday for International Youth Day. And I just want to congratulate Melicia Clark, who was awarded in Sports Excellence, Brandon Powell in Information Technology, Verna Grant in Education and Lifelong Learning, Ravina Prasad in Youth in Agriculture, Delcia Burke in Volunteerism, and Cecilia Cressy Stanley in Entrepreneurship, with specialty in culinary arts. And I would have expressed those sentiments to the young people in Nevis yesterday as well as I spoke at the award ceremony. People are looking at them as role models, and so people are looking at us as members of this honorable House as role models as well. I also want this time, Mr. Speaker, to congratulate Mr. Kezron Archibald, who is from Nevis, who would have made it onto the St. Kitts Nevis Patriots team. The CPL will be starting in the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, I think it's next week. And I want to congratulate Kezron. He's a young cricketer. There's a lot of potential, a lot of talent, and I'm very proud to say he's from my club as well, the club that I'm the president of, the Empire Sports Club. He's a Nevisian, but he's a member of the sports club. And I want to wish him well, and I hope that he will represent himself and St. Kitts and Nevis well, and I believe this is a talent that will make it onto the West Indies team. So I want to congratulate young Kezron Archibald and hope that he will do wonders of the CPL in Trinidad and Tobago. Once again, Mr. Speaker, let me congratulate all of us, and I wish all of us a very successful 5-year term in this honorable House. May it please you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Eric Evelyn, member for Nevis 10. I now recognize another newly elected member in the person of the Honorable John L. Powell, member for St. Christopher 2.
If it pleases you, Mr. Speaker, I, with your leave, rise on the adjournment as well to make some brief remarks. As this is my first time addressing this honorable House, I use the opportunity to thank the great architect of the universe for giving me the ability to serve in this honorable House. But I also must say a very hearty thank you to the good people of constituency number 2, Central Bastille, for reposing the confidence and trust in me and giving me the opportunity to come here and represent them in the National Assembly. I must say it is indeed an honor to be able to sit here in Parliament. It is a particular privilege to be able to sit on this side of the Parliament. And I do so proudly as a member of this Team Unity administration. Mr. Speaker, once upon a time in this country, some of us had the mentality, for example, a Herbert will never sit in this parliament. But I stand here proudly as a Herbert and a member of Team Unity, because I believe that I, like many of my colleagues, are testament that under this Team Unity administration, whether you are a young boy from Cotton Ground, a young girl from Sadlers, whether you support a Labour Party, a PAM Party, a CCM Party, whatever it is, you have an opportunity in this country to achieve whatever you want to achieve. Whether it be to serve as a member of parliament, whether it be to serve as the Premier of Nevis, whether it be to serve as the Prime Minister of this country, those opportunities exist here. And so I said to my good friend from constituency number 1, if it is that you want to come, there's plenty of space. There's plenty of space. Come over. My colleague from number 6 can come if he wants as well. There's plenty of room under the tent. But I say that it is indeed a pleasure. I look forward to raising the level of debate in this House, as I attempted to do during the recently held general elections and that campaign. I am particularly happy to be able to sit in this House with so many younger members, in the persons of my good friend and colleague and neighbor from number 3, the member for number 3, the Honorable Senator and Deputy Speaker, and the Honorable Senator on the other side. I don't think our House has ever been graced by so many young people at the same time, and I'm happy. And my good friend from number 11. But I'm happy to be able to sit in our National Assembly at this time in our history, and to be able to contribute, because I have the confidence that we all have it in us to contribute and do so in a positive way, and to lift that debate. And so I wanted to share that. I also want to use this opportunity to lend my support in the expression of condolences to all those who have lost loved ones in recent times. I too use the opportunity to express condolences particularly to the family of the late Richard Keynes, a constituent of mine, a friend, a mentor when it came to political studies and political issues. He was one of a kind. And I'm sure we will all miss him, regardless of what our political affiliations were. Richard Keynes has made an indelible mark on this country and this parliament. And so I say to his family and loved ones, rest assured that Richard made his contribution, and we're all proud and happy for that contribution. May his soul rest in eternal peace. Finally, I cannot sit unless I also express condolences to the family of the late Lloyd Lazar. Mr. Lazar has made a significant contribution to this country within the civil service, and particularly in the area of sport. And as the minister with the responsibility for sport, I must use this opportunity to acknowledge his passing. Mr. Lazar was a former director of sport within the department and ministry. He was the PS within the Ministry of Tourism, Sport and Culture. He also served as the chairman of the Special Olympics here in St. Kitts and Nevis, and actually served as the Caribbean representative to the Commonwealth Advisory Board on Sport. We knew him through sports administration and sports commentary. We knew that voice there, and we also knew the face as an anchor on ZIZ television. And so he too has made a significant contribution that must be acknowledged. So to the family, my condolences once again, and may his soul too rest in eternal peace. May it please you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. The Honourable Member for St. Christopher II, Mr. Jordan Howell. I recognize the Honourable Member for St. Christopher III.
Mr. Speaker, with your leave, I rise to make my brief contribution on the adjournment, as I'll call it my maiden as well, although I've been here previously as deputy, first time being here as elected member for St. Christopher number 3, and that is where I want to start. I want to start, very historic, thank you. I want to start first by saying a huge thank you to the people of St. Christopher number 3, West Bastia, for allowing me this opportunity to serve them here in Parliament, as well as I promised, at the seat at the cabinet table. Mr. Speaker, as I did my door-to-door, I promised the people of West Bastia that for the first time in the history of West Bastia, for many, many years, they will finally receive the representation that they truly deserve. And that is what I intend to give. True representation to the people of West Bastia. I promised them that I will lobby on their behalf in order to be able to ensure that West Bastia receives their fair share. And that is what I will do as their representative, Mr. Speaker. And I am sure the deputy and the representative for number 5 can tell you that I've already started lobbying on behalf of the people of St. Christopher number 3. And so I must say thank you to them. I must say thank you, because the support that they gave wasn't just a small support. It was significant. It was a significant support. In a constituency which for years have only been served by one political party, it indeed is historic that the people of West Bastia decided that they indeed wanted a change, and they entrusted that to me. And for that, I am truly humbled by that and grateful that they have allowed me that opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I also want to be able to thank the team that supported me throughout the campaign, a team of young people, Mr. Speaker. And I could remember once the election was called, the number of young people who showed up to rally. That is when I gained even more confidence that indeed we were about to turn a constituency that has never been turned before. Because the young people's voice, they felt their voice being heard, and they showed up to ensure that their voice was being heard. And I will not fail them or let them down, Mr. Speaker. To my family, I have to say thank you as well. My very supportive husband, who campaigned with me, and my children, for allowing me the opportunity and the freedom to be able to serve, and for giving up some of their time that they may have with me to allow me the opportunity to serve. To them, I must say thank you. And my parents and siblings as well, who continue to support me in everything that I do, Mr. Speaker. And so to West Bastia, I just say thank you, thank you, thank you for that support that you showed me on June 5th. And I promise you, and I guarantee you, that I will be lobbying on your behalf. I will give you the representation that I promised, the representation that you deserve. Now, Mr. Speaker, as it relates to the Ministry of Health in particular, last Saturday we would have started our SKN Moves initiative, the first anniversary of SKN Moves. And I want to thank everyone who would have showed up to participate in the walk, the health walk. We had quite a turnout of individuals. We even ran out of shirts because we didn't expect such a turnout. But it tells me that the people of St. Kitts and Nevis are recognizing the importance of taking stock of their health. And they understand their individual responsibility to ensure that their health is priority, and also to ensure that we decrease the numbers and the rates of deaths to NCDs. And I was very happy and pleased to see that. And I am sure that many of them would be on their computers, phones, however you are, being able to view our virtual fitness fest with the number of trainers who have been providing exercise routines in the comfort of your own home or wherever you choose. And I know persons have come up to me and said that they indeed are taking part in that initiative, and they appreciate that. And so the Ministry of Health is thankful that persons are taking their health seriously, and they understand the importance of what we're trying to do with SKN Moves, which is to ensure that we have a healthier society. Persons learn to move more and exercise, eat right, so that we can decrease our rates of NCDs. And then I want to also remind everyone that it culminates tomorrow with our health fair at Independence Square. So persons should come out, get your tests done, learn from one of our Taiwanese volunteers who's here as a nutritionist, who will teach us how to create dishes and recipes that we normally create, but in a healthier way, specifically for persons with diabetes. And so I'm encouraging persons to come out to the square tomorrow. It starts at 9 a.m. Just come out and be a part of what the Ministry of Health is trying to achieve through SKN Moves to ensure a healthier life. So, and Mr. Speaker, I also want to encourage persons to continue to look at SKN Moves as not just something that happens once a year when we celebrate the anniversary, but as a movement. So even the shirts that you have received from SKN Moves, use those. And if you're exercising with family and friends, going on a hike or whatever it is, wear the shirt, take pictures, and encourage everybody else to go out and lead a healthier life. As it pertains to the Ministry of Entrepreneurship, I know that has great interest, especially for young people, and I would agree. It is an exciting ministry and one that I look forward to being able to shape. And as I would have indicated in the press conference, we have already begun the framework necessary for us to be able to move towards having this ministry up and running. But most importantly, what this ministry will intend to do is to reach out to the persons that would be most affected by this ministry and have their thoughts, hear what they care to see and how they believe that this ministry will be able to help them, whether it is music or dance or arts, even culinary arts, and most importantly, innovation as well. We want to be able to hear from the young people. How can this ministry serve you? It's not just about someone telling you what you should do or what you should expect. This is an opportunity for us as young people to be able to create a ministry within the government that can serve us exactly how we wish to see it serve us. And that's something I'm really excited about, because we keep talking about youth. And if you look around, number of young people here. Quite a number of young people here. Jeff will still call you young, just for that, yes. And so the young people are really interested in making a difference, and this is the opportunity and a whole ministry now that we'll be able to shape. And so I'm looking forward to persons showing up at our different town hall style meetings, which we have been calling the creative arena, to give your voice and be heard and try to help us as we shape this new ministry. So I'm looking forward to that. I will do as the others have done before me and congratulate the new members of Parliament. The Honorable Alexis Jeffers, who have indicated that he too is very young still, and so he is in that category of the youth joining Parliament for Nevis. For Nevis 11, I also like to congratulate our new member for Nevis 10, the Honorable Jonelle Powell, my neighbor constituency and a dear friend for many years. Congratulations as well for joining us here in the National Assembly. And to Dr. Bonicia Nisbet, welcome as our new Deputy Speaker. And as I said to all of you, I look forward to working with you on the government side. On the opposition side, I must welcome Dr. Jeffrey Hanley, who he would have indicated, he didn't say much, but he would have been the individual who would have introduced me to Parliament and brought me in as a youth parliamentarian, and I would have sat as Speaker of the first ever youth parliament and subsequent youth parliaments after that, and further representing St. Kitts and Nevis at the Millennium Youth Parliament in the United Kingdom. And so I'm thankful for that, and congratulations and welcome to Parliament to Dr. Joyal Clark, sorry. Welcome to you as well to Parliament. Your maiden speech was powerful, and I hope that you will be able to push through with everything that you would have said in your maiden speech. And we look forward to working along with you as well as young people here in Parliament. But in particular, I must mention the number of women that we also have represented here in Parliament. 4 women sitting in Parliament for the first time in history, and that cannot be lost on anyone. 1 elected, 3 senators appointed, and that cannot be lost on us. And then, of course, thank you so much, Mr. Hamilton, and we cannot forget the 2 clerks who are also women. So women are well represented in our Parliament. And this is something that the Team Unity Administration have pushed for a long time, the inclusion of women, the inclusion of youth, and we see that continue to manifest itself in every decision that we make and every appointment that we make. We see more women and more youth being part of those appointments. And so it is refreshing to have so many young persons here. It is refreshing to have so many women here. Mr. Speaker, just as you said, it is refreshing to hear all of the maiden speeches here today, and it seems as if we will have a very interesting and fruitful 5-year term of this Parliament, and I'm looking forward to what will unfold as we continue through the 5-year terms. And I would hope that just as each individual would have presented themselves today and indicate what their intentions are and what they hope to be able to bring to the Parliament, that we will indeed see that play out over the next 5 years. And finally, Mr. Speaker, allow me as well to be able to extend my condolences to families who would have lost loved ones. First, I would like to extend condolences to the family of Mr. Richard Keynes. I got to know Mr. Richard Keynes. Well, everybody knew of Mr. Richard Keynes, but I got to know him over the past few years. And I remember visiting his home some weeks ago. And when I sat there, one of the things that he talked about, and I heard Honorable Member for number 8 would have mentioned it, the taking away of the keys or the vehicles and insisting that persons not use government vehicles after hours as a way of saving money for the government. And he told me that story to tell me that in every decision that you make, as long as you know you're doing the right thing, people will get upset with you. But you can't let that deter you from doing the right thing. Continue to always do the right thing. And every decision that you make, ensure it is for the best of the country as a whole. And just ensure that at the end of the day, when you put your head down to sleep at night, you know you have done the right thing. And I would like to encourage everyone here as well to remember that. And so to his family, I would like to extend my deepest sympathy to you. His daughter Joy, who I know very well, my deepest sympathy to you. I know I would have visited his home the morning before he died, and her and I would have had a long conversation as she prepared herself. And so to you, I just want to say condolences to you and all of your siblings. Sister Inez, as I know her, who would have known from since I was a child going to church, my condolences to you as well. To the family of Mr. Lloyd Lazar, who happens to reside in St. Christopher III, I would like to extend my condolences as well. Mr. Lloyd has made an impact in this country as well and contributed so much in sports, in tourism. His name is known. And as young people, we all remember him from reading the news on ZIZ. He was someone who would call one of our most famous persons, because everybody knew Mr. Lloyd from ZIZ in particular. And so I would like to extend my condolences to his family as well. And to the family of Mr. Cecile Maynard of Buckley's Housing Development, I would also like to extend my condolences to you. And I know that for each of these families, may God continue to grant you that peace as you continue to come to terms with the passing of your loved one. And so, with those few words, Mr. Speaker, may it please you.
Thank you. Honourable Member for St. Christopher 3, Killer Byron Nisbet. I would recognize the Honourable Member for Nevis 11 and permit me to refer to you as the oldest of the young, newly elected.
Boy, he might just pull the rug from under me, you know. He just pull the rug from under me. Anyway, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I rise on the adjournment to make a few comments, and I indulge your attention and the attention of this Honourable House. Mr. Speaker, it is indeed a pleasure to be here, and I will say to you that if I did not rise this afternoon on the adjournment to say some brief words, I believe I would have missed out on a historic opportunity to make my maiden presentation, albeit not on the bills that were presented this morning, but this evening on the adjournment. Mr. Speaker, I will say to you that this is indeed a proud moment, because if one were to look at the history of Nevis 11, my colleague just before me, my colleague from St. Christopher 3 would have spoken about history. If I were to look at the history behind that constituency of Nevis 11, never before have there been a representative in this Honourable House from that constituency for any other party other than the party which would have been defeated just recently, the NRP. So indeed, I am proud to stand here this afternoon and to say thanks and pour out my gratitude and thanks, that is, to the good people of Nevis 11 for reposing their confidence in me and sending me here to represent them for the next 5 years. This journey was not an easy one, Mr. Speaker, sorry. And as I speak of journey, I had a brief interaction with the member for St. Christopher 6, and I did mention to him that I am in the arrival lounge. And I believe I stopped there because he would recall the interaction with my colleague from, and member for Nevis 9 some years ago when a particular statement was made. We are not going on the road this afternoon, but his memory is very good, so he would recall what that statement was. So I briefly told him that I'm in the arrival lounge, and I intend to be here with God's grace for the next 5 years. But I also said that his memory is very good too, because I believe he can recall as well how difficult it has been for me to get here because of all of the things that have happened over the years. I will not go there either, because this is not the time for that. But I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that all of the comments that were made about our young people, I want to say to our young people this afternoon who are listening and who are here, that nothing in life is easy. There may be some easy pathway in life, but they lead to destruction in many ways. But in the field or in the profession of politics, nothing is easy. I am testimony of that. My colleague from St. Christopher 3, St. Christopher 2, Nevis 10, all of us can speak of the difficulties that we have had to undergo to get here, to get into this Honourable House, and to serve the people who we have been sent here to serve. So I want to say to our young people, you may not end up in the #1 position in life. You might end up in the #2 position. But whatever position you find yourself in, always try to do your best in that particular position. Try to excel. And understand that persons are not going to always move out the way for you to get in a position or a particular position.
you have to continue to work, continue to persevere, and continue to strive for the best. And those are some brief admonitions that I want to give to our young people this afternoon. But there's hope in our young people. And I said earlier that I am still young because I look young, I feel young, and I am certain I'm still young, yes. And I sound young. And I behave young. And say I play young. But there is something to it, Mr. President, because many of us who are here at this particular juncture will not be here some years to come. And of course, those who are behind us, they are the ones who will soon find themselves in this honorable house and serving the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. And as such, our examples that we will set here in this honorable house will be those examples that our young people, I'm sure, will follow in order to get to this particular point in time. But Mr. President, I want to say to you this afternoon, Mr. Speaker, sorry, remember I'm coming from the Nevis Island Assembly as well, so I'll have to get my, I have to get it right in terms of where I find myself from time to time. But I want to say that my colleague opposite from St. Christopher, one would have said that he had a suit for the past 50 years. 15? Oh. I was just trying to get at your age, but, you know, that's why I said 50. But, Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, I'll say to you that the suit that I wore at Warner Park when we were being sworn in, I bought it last year, November, in Miami. And I placed it in my clothes closet, and I said, I will be wearing that suit come the next swearing in of the federal ministers. And I was a part of that swearing-in ceremony wearing that new suit. That is how confident I was at that point in time. I make that comment because I do believe that when you pursue anything in life, you have to pursue it with some alacrity, some vim, vigor, and vitality, and confidence. And that is what I did, Mr. President, Mr. Speaker, sorry. And of course, the examples that I'm putting forward here this afternoon are examples that we can all aspire to. So, Mr. President, I didn't come with a prepared, I'm saying President. I'll get it right. I have 5 years to get it right, as a matter of fact. 5 years, so you must get right someday. So, Mr. Speaker, I didn't come with a prepared text or speech this afternoon, because I do believe over the next 5 years, as we go along this journey, and I'll have some ways of introducing incrementally some of the things that I want to say as I go along. But I want to join with all of the members of this House to express condolences to all who are grieving at this point in time. The Honorable Richard Keynes, I knew him, not personally, but I knew him, and of course he would have contributed to the development of this federation. All who have parted this life would have contributed in some way toward nation building, and we have to thank them for their contribution. We're all recipients of their contributions towards the development of this federation. And as such, what we do here, what we say here, and what we do as we go on this journey will certainly add to what they would have done over the years in building this great federation of ours. All of us on this side and on the opposite side, we speak of the way that we carry ourselves or debate in this particular house. But of course, what we do and say will have a long-lasting impact on the lives of those who follow this honorable house. And I will make the commitment this afternoon to hold myself to a particular standard that is befitting of this honorable house, because I can say when I went to church shortly after the last election, my priest would have gave me some admonition to lift the standard of the debate. He singled me out in church, which I believe that was for a particular reason. And he singled me out and he said, listen, when you go to the federal parliament, lift the debate, lift the standard, and I am one who listens to my priests, so I intend to do likewise. So, Mr. President, I want to also at this point in time, Mr. Speaker, thank the Prime Minister for appointing me as the Minister of Agriculture for the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. I intend to meet with farmers, build bridges, extend the hand of friendship so that we can work together. They are our major stakeholders in this particular sector. And I do believe over the next 5 years we will attempt to build some resiliency in the sector and, of course, ensure that there is some sustainability in that sector as well. I do believe that COVID-19 has given us some wonderful opportunities and some platform on which to build on to ensure that we can feed ourselves going into the future. So with those few words, Mr. President, I want to say thank you for the opportunity to speak on the adjournment. We'll have many more years, of course, of contributions to this honorable House. And with those few words, I want to thank you, Mr. President. May it please you. Mr. Speaker, President, I tell you.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Alexis Jeffords.
I rise with
Yes,
your leave,
certainly.
and I would want to...
Before you continue, Honorable Member, I too would want to share something about my 20-year-old suit. Meaning, 20 years ago, June 2000, there's a suit that I wore to this Parliament where I took my oath somewhere there where Honorable Brantley's passing, 20 years ago. I am now thinking about when next I should wear that suit. I'll leave it there for now. Continue.
Since we have had a fulsome expression on the adjournment of the Parliament, and we were able to perceive to those expressions what perhaps the future holds. But the future really is never predictable. And I say that reflecting back that when I came to this Parliament, I was a mere 28 years old. Over 27 years have been in this Parliament, seen it from both sides, from the opposition side and from the side of government. I will be the first to confess, difficult as government is, it's always better on this side. And so I reflect on the good fortune of being able to serve the people of Number 7 over all this time. And the good fortune as I rise now to recognize that at this point in time, I am the longest serving minister in the federal level since independence. And that is an amazing achievement by itself. And I have been fortunate even to have more blessings accorded my way, because the good people of St. Kitts and of Nevis have allowed us the opportunity to serve again as a team unity administration, and have given me the opportunity to continue a second term as the Prime Minister of this country that I love so much, and this country which has been so wonderfully good to me. Neither my entry formally in the hustle and bustle of the politics, nor subsequent events were things that I had any, as it were, prediction would happen. When I entered politics, I had always been involved in politics because my father was really a politician. My mother had no interest in the politics other than through him. She always played a supportive role. My father was a union shop steward. My father's house was the house from which the Labour Party, then great Labour Party, would have had the power from which to do and to conduct their public meeting. My father was the inside agent for the party in the village. And I saw all those things happening, not really keen in understanding them. Sometimes the more things change, the more they remain the same. Because when I became active in the politics, and more so as the representative for the good people of Number 7, who have always been so kind and generous and giving, and have always treated me better than I think I deserve. So I will always owe them a debt of gratitude. Incidentally, when I came home in '93, the elections had already been announced, and I was returned. And in every subsequent election thereafter, I would have won my seat and won every box in the constituency. So I understand the dynamics of it, and I understand being in opposition as well as being in government. And I want to really thank God for the mixed experiences that He has provided me so I could appreciate where we are at now. But I also want to give Him thanks because in spite of very difficult circumstances, when I had the decision to make about going into the general elections, look at all the prevailing circumstances and the fact that the country and the world was being tested by COVID-19. And yet when we ask what we are going to do, what are the opportunities? We were told that the Constitution is quite clear. COVID or not, a general elections had to be called. And the Attorney General would have given advice, our external legal people would have given advice as to several scenarios. Ultimately, it's always the judgment of the Prime Minister to determine when the elections would have called. And although my good friend, the Attorney General, would from time to time have suggested dates to myself and to the Deputy, it was just one morning I wake up and as if by magic, because I really wasn't thinking of that date. But God sent an angel to say that it had to be this date. And, and it turned out to be a winning date. Because there were developments in between which had made us want to reconsider what it was we were going to do and what time. And that is why I say, in the end, sometimes sera, sera. Whatever will be, will be. The future, not ours to determine. I will always be humbled by my own experiences and appreciate really that I have been given a unique opportunity at such a time like this to lead this country, this island of St. Kitts and Nevis from which my mother came, and also to lead the island of Nevis from which my father hails as the Prime Minister of the state of St. Kitts and Nevis. And I promise, as I have always pledged, that the people of St. Kitts and the people of Nevis should know and could be assured that always the son of the soil will give my country nothing but the best of service. And that is still my pledge, and that is still the pledge of us on this side. Hence we came up with the winning message, the safer and the stronger future, which the people of St. Kitts and Nevis endorse. And endorse in a manner that made history, because the records will also show that for the very first time we have come to Parliament and the government side with so many elected members. That is a record. It has happened under Team Unity. We have expanded our reach because contrary to the propaganda, contrary to what some allow themselves to believe, Team Unity was about enlargement of a space, not restricting it. It was Team Unity at work in every constituency. And the Deputy Prime Minister gave loud recognition to this in his Thanksgiving service in Sandy Point, how the various forces of the Team Unity family, in particular those of PAM and PLP, brought home his seat in record victory. And I see it and I know it, because through every constituency we would have gone and I would have worked in all of them, one would have recognized that there was an instinctive pull, not to the same old time where politics we hear people talking about. People wanted and were investing their confidence in a Team Unity government. So I want to say thank you. Thank you to the people in all of the constituencies that return Team Unity. Thank you even in those constituencies like St. Christopher 6 that did not deliver to Team Unity but showed that the pull of Team Unity was magical and inspiring even in the stronghold of the party there. I want to commend then Mr. Kevin Williams, now His Excellency, Ambassador Kevin Williams, for taking the torch, the light of the future, and in a short period of time, reminiscent of my own experience, because he was launched once the campaign had already started. Indeed, it was the deputy and I who had gone to St. Paul's to present him. And we were able there again to see the Unity family at work and what that can do. I want to thank the leaders and all the other people who were there in that first meeting that helped us give life to that one. I want, of course, to thank the people from my own constituency. I love them from the bottom of my heart. They are my family, in blood, in spirit, in every way. I want to thank those, of course, from number 8, and we had good run-ins there. And even when some were foolhardy enough to believe that St. Christopher 8 was gone, the spirit of unity, the spirit of unity again prevailed. The magic of a people excited in the future and having confidence in the success of a movement that had delivered like none before it, gave us back the honorable member of St. Christopher 8 in good peace. And I want to not vote for the people of number 8, because it was not the first time that they did that. In what it was 2015, no, 2010 was not under unity. 2015, when some got caught up with the noise. The noise what is it? And the spring chicken presentation. The people wanted substance. And the people, in fact, were not so much caught up with nice and fancy speeches. They saw substance could be delivered by the member for number 8. And I am happy that he is back here. I want, of course, to thank the people in number 1 for their support. And even as I do so, recognizing, at least on this day, there's another member sitting in that constituency, and we welcome him. He and I go back many years. We were part of the same movement. And so he knows me and I know him. And until such time, we welcome him and we commend his accession to the Parliament, and we look forward to the future. In number 2, I want to commend the people of Central Bastia, who again did what they completed the task which they started in 2015, and they returned the member for number 2 in a Team Unity banner. I want to congratulate the people of Central Bastia and of course commend the new member for Central Bastia, the Honorable John L. Powell. And again, we want to commend all. I mean, it was this sense that we were together, the very old, whatever their party loyalties, like people like Alice and all those other people, Dumpling and all these other people, were saying loud and clear, we were giving our vote for Team Unity. Of course, I would want to thank the people of West Bastia for their support to Mrs. Akila Byron Nisbet. That again was a surprise victory, but it was a victory of the people of West Bastia. The people again were able to distinguish between the noise, between the talk, and a personality who genuinely wanted to bring action to the people of West Bastia. And they expect that Akila will deliver for them. And she will have the fullest support, as with all of the citizens everywhere, that our Team Unity government would deliver. I want, of course, to commend the people of number 4 for returning the Honorable Lindsay Grant to the Parliament and by extension to the Cabinet. The nature of the victory indicating again that the spirit of the team inspired through and through. Again, it was a constituency in which considerable effort and resources were expended from, and I mean people and time, from challengers all the way downwards. And I want to thank those people who, in the end, gave their support for the efforts of the government. And of course, I've already said thank you to the people of St. Christopher 5 for returning the Honorable Sean Richards. More power to the people of Sandy Point SP, where some of the best meet. And thank them, of course, for their support. We want to thank the people of my father's land of Nevis for their support in the Team Unity movement, and to thank them for enlarging the victory there with a good brother who is the oldest of the young lot. We welcome the Honorable Alexis Jeffers to this side of the Parliament, and we look forward to his outstanding service to the people of the Federation to the portfolio assignments that have been bestowed on him. And equally, my good friend, the Honorable Eric Evelyn, we thank him, and we certainly are pleased by his outstanding performance. And I know from our distant history that he's a man who certainly we could count on to deliver the stronger and safer future. I want to commend the people of Nevis for their support for the Honorable Mark Grantley and for returning him again to serve as part of the Team Unity movement and to contribute his talents for the stronger and safer future. And I want to thank all of my colleagues, really, for this partnership in service of nation building. I want to thank my teacher, the Honorable Attorney General, for agreeing to serve us for such a time like this, a period of turbulence, a period of great uncertainty, but yet a future which we are sure has to be stronger and safer. And our work today and tomorrow will certainly make it that way. I want to thank him for many reasons, because little is known that he was one of the founding members and perhaps visionaries of the Team Unity movement. And he spent a long time. He usually takes a long time in doing things. But he took a long time in doing the documentation and a number of things that were required for us to understand what we were getting into, what vision, what ideas were going to motivate us and motivate the people. And even in the difficult times of leadership in opposition, when the full weight of an adversarial government comes against you, he taught me three things, which I forgot too. And it will come back to me, because I hadn't intended to speak to them. But he taught me courage, perseverance, and stamina. A sense of justice. That was it. So I want to thank him for preferring those virtues to me, and which helped me even in difficult times. When we brought Senator Wendy Phipps to be part of the government, it was, as it were, in recognition that she was someone who could give outstanding support to the government in policy determination, in policy implementation, and its outreach. And I'm happy that for the second term, she has agreed to come and to serve. And I am certain in the areas in which I have advised the Governor General to assign portfolio responsibility, she will bring them alive, and she will ensure that the fruits of her labor redound to the benefit of the people and the ordinary people, our workers who are displaced, our workers who have to negotiate, our small business people who need the support of the government. She will ensure that we are able to deliver while we create the kind of business environment that will bring more investors and excite the imagination of our young people into the view that they can do. I say this to say then, I present again this Team Unity administration for consideration each day. Each day we promise that we shall earn again the trust, the confidence, and the support of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. That is the pledge, and that is the commitment. And whatever we have to do, we will do to deliver on the highest expectations of our people. It is nice when people aspire for higher heights and higher levels and higher values. These are the things that turn the magic of nation building into real results for the people of our country. So again, my heartiest congratulations to all the people who have made this Team Unity government happen for a second time. I want in the few remaining minutes, that are available to me to also thank our Deputy Speaker, Dr. Bernicia Nisbet, for agreeing and for accepting the mandate to serve the country in this capacity. It is a good position to enter in the Parliament. And I know that you are genuine, you are sincere, you are a hard worker. You have a message that would inspire young ladies, young boys, people in our rural and urban communities. And I know you are going to be a good example for our young people, our women folks, and in fact for all of us. Your life story is one when told in the fullness of time will be one that brings people in amazement. Talking about perseverance, you have shown that. Talking about humility, you have shown that. Talking about a capacity for service, you have that. You have that. And so I want to commend you and thank your mother, and thank all of your families who would have agreed. And I know future is bright. I would say no more with respect to that, lest it be misinterpreted. But the future is bright for all of us. I want to also extend welcome. I wish that I could have said it at the inaugural sitting of the Parliament, but who knows what the future would have been. And on the first sitting, it was inconvenient for the opposition to show up. We are happy that they are here now, albeit in diminished numbers, but they are here. So I welcome each one of them. I welcome back the leader of the opposition. He's going his fourth round as a leader of the opposition. Again, we welcome him. And he knows what his future will be, but I wish him all the best. I welcome the TUNE members and appreciate that perhaps they, if they use their imagination, their independent spirit and thinking, can certainly contribute properly, not just to the debate, but to nation building. There are times when some enter the Parliament and have been there long enough to see persons come and go. And because they did not do what was expected of them, the tenure had been short. Tenure had been short. So there's a lot to learn. And I am a student of history. So I welcome all of you. I hope that the quality of the conversation, because when we come into Parliament, we must appreciate that this is democracy at work. This is what it is. Because in the context of the Westminster parliamentary system, which is what we have, the Parliament stands at the fulcrum of democracy. It is here we come and we do debate and we exchange ideas for nation building, for moving the country forward, for dealing with our international obligations and obligations to the domestic society, as we did this morning. And so I'm looking forward at the next opportunity that we could have a real conversation reflecting where we are. One people, one country. all of us want the best for our country. May we want to take different pathways to get there. So I appreciate that the Parliament should be and can be the contest of ideas. Mr. Speaker, I want to join those before me in expressing condolences to all those who are bereaved. Some from my constituency have done that, I've seen them. I won't bother to go through identifying them. I want, though, to recognize the passing of Lloyd Lazar, who had been a very diligent public servant, provided service in a multiplicity of areas of public life, sports, communication, community development, etc. He had been on the vanguard, and he had had a difficult last number of years. We hope that his soul now can rest in eternal peace. Equally, I commend the soul of Constable Maku to eternal rest. Maku has been somewhat of a villager of Tabernacle. He made many friendships there. He moved elsewhere. And he also served for a while as part of the security team to the office of the Prime Minister. So I knew him well, and he's well known and well loved by my family. To his wife, who is bereaved, and his immediate and extended family, I want again to extend our deepest condolences. I want also to remember Richard Keynes, and I'm not going to tarry long. The family has offered me the opportunity to speak at his interment, and in considering, but I've had the opportunity to interact with his family, those here and those who would have returned. Richard was a strong advocate for team unity, believed in it. And even when you visited him, his confidence in this government, which he helped to shape, had never been diminished. And so, as low as he went in health, he promised me, in the presence of Joy and other caretakers, that he will show up at the swearing-in ceremony at Warner Park. And he came in his wheelchair. And he inquired whether or not I had seen him after I had taken my seat. That was a commitment he had to the cause and to the movement. It never diminished. Because for him it was more than what was in it for him. It was seeing a difference which a team unity could make to national life, to the politics, etc. And then again, he would promise that he would come to the inaugural sitting of the National Assembly. And he came again in his wheelchair. He said to me, in his usual style, well, I could dead now. I see my government back in. And so I said that just to say that for him, the investment in time and other resources that he would have put in the support for the team unity government, the Deputy Prime Minister spoke to the radio programs, the public meetings, etc., of which he was one of the key supporters of his own initiative. And he put all that in, and I was happy to learn that he was satisfied and felt a sense of vindication. In closing then, we pass this way but once. What we have to do is to do the best we can each day. Not wait until tomorrow, as some people are wont to do. We do the best we can, to everyone we can, each day for the rest of our lives. And St. Kitts and Nevis, I am sure, will be better for us having passed this way but once. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Prime Minister, and I thank all members for their contributions on the adjournment. Honourable members, as per the request of the leader of government business earlier on, we will rise in a minute of silence in memory of our departed former parliamentarian who would have sat here in this Honourable Assembly for some 15 years, the Honourable Richard Llewellyn Keynes. Thank you. Please be seated. In closing today's proceedings, I would simply like to join with all members who would have expressed condolences to the families and friends of the departed ones. I would also again wish to congratulate all of you members who have been elected, re-elected, or appointed, and to say, like I've said earlier on, that based on what I've heard in terms of the presentations on the adjournment, coming from, in particular, the newly elected and newly appointed, that I think this new session of Parliament could probably turn out in the end to be one of a difference, and I mean a positive difference. On that note, the question is that this Honourable House stands adjourned, sine die. Those in favour? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. This Honourable House stands adjourned, sine die.